no. I waited for you to jump in. I waited for you to man up. And I'm not going to give you a silver platter and say, oh, everything's done. Here you go. It doesn't work that way.
The Northwestern has survived some of the worst storms the Bering Sea could throw at it. But the biggest questions surrounding Sig Hansen never came from the ocean. They came from the headlines. Over the years, rumors, lawsuits, medical scares, and unexpected controversies left many fans wondering what was really happening behind the scenes and whether there was more to the story than the cameras ever showed. So what really happened aboard Sig Hansen's famous vessel? And why did the Northwestern become tied to so many shocking headlines? Join us as we uncover the real story behind the Northwestern. The shocking discovery. For more than 2 decades, Sig Hansen has been one of the defining faces of deadliest catch. As captain of the F-fevered Northwestern, he has built a solid reputation on the sea. Whether he was steering through towering waves or making split-second decisions in the middle of the Bering Sea, Sig became the captain who rarely backed down from danger. But away from the cameras, a very different story was unfolding. In recent years, viral headlines have repeatedly laid claims about something shocking that was found aboard Sig Hansen's boat. Those stories spread quickly, leaving many fans wondering whether the legendary captain had become caught up in a scandal that reached far beyond commercial fishing. The answer is far more complicated. The Northwestern has been linked to lawsuits, medical emergencies, and investigations that brought unexpected attention to one of the most famous vessels on television. At the same time, Sig's own life was becoming increasingly complicated. Long-buried family disputes returned to public view. Legal battles made national headlines, and incidents away from the sea began challenging the image that millions of viewers had come to know. None of it happened overnight. Each event added another chapter to a story that grew larger with every passing year, turning one of television's most respected captains into one of its most talked-about figures. So, what really happened aboard Sig Hansen's boat? And how did the captain who spent a lifetime conquering the Bering Sea find himself surrounded by so many questions? The lawsuit against Northwestern. For years, the Northwestern was known as one of the most dependable boats on deadliest catch. It survived violent storms, freezing temperatures, and countless close calls in the Bering Sea, earning a reputation for resilience under Sig Hansen's leadership. While other vessels battled breakdowns and dangerous conditions, the Northwestern became a symbol of experience and discipline. But in 2016, the famous crab boat found itself at the center of a very different kind of storm, one that eventually played out in court instead of on the open sea. The story centered on veteran deckhand Nick Mavar Jr. By then, Nick was already a familiar face to viewers and an experienced fisherman who understood the risks of commercial crab fishing. Life on the Bering Sea had never been easy. Long shifts, freezing weather, and injuries were part of the job. And most crew members learned to work through pain, because stopping a season could affect everyone on board. But what began as a medical problem during one fishing trip soon developed into something far more serious. According to court filings, Nick developed a severe infection while Northwestern was operating in the Bering Sea. He alleged that he suffered a rupture in his appendix, which contained a cancerous tumor. He later claimed that instead of being evacuated as his condition worsened, he remained aboard while the infection continued to spread. By the time he was finally transported ashore, the situation had become critical. He required hospitalization and surgery, and according to the lawsuit, the complications affected both his health and his ability to continue working. The following year, Nick took the matter to court. In a negligence lawsuit seeking more than $1 million in damages, he alleged that those responsible for the vessel failed to provide timely medical care and that the delay made his condition significantly worse. that lawsuit placed Northwestern under an entirely different kind of scrutiny. The same vessel that had built its reputation through years of successful fishing was now being examined through a legal lens. Everything moved from crab catches to court documents and medical records. As captain, Sig Hansen inevitably became part of that conversation. Although the lawsuit involved multiple parties connected to the vessel and its operation, every major decision made during the trip attracted attention. Supporters argued that people on shore often underestimate how difficult medical emergencies are to manage hundreds of miles from the nearest hospital. Others believed the lawsuit raised legitimate questions about whether help should have come sooner. The lawsuit forced people to look at Northwestern in a different way. Still, the toughest challenge was yet to come. There were many other hard moments Sig Hansen was forced to face. When the boat became an emergency. For most of its life, Northwestern was known for one thing. It always found a way home. Season after season, the vessel battled some of the roughest water on Earth. Giant swells crashed across the deck, freezing spray coated the railings in thick ice, and every haul brought new risks. Those dangers became part of the show's identity, and Sig Hansen built his reputation by facing them head-on. However, there came a point when the greatest threat was no longer outside the boat, but inside it. In 2016, while filming Deadliest Catch, Sig began experiencing severe chest pain aboard the Northwestern. At first, he tried to push through it, believing it was something he could handle. That mindset was nothing new. Commercial fishermen are known for working through pain because every hour on the fishing grounds matters. Turning back early can mean losing valuable catches during a short season. This time, however, pushing through was not an option. The pain continued to intensify until it became clear that Sig needed immediate medical attention. He was eventually taken off the vessel and transported to a hospital, where doctors confirmed he had suffered a heart attack. Suddenly, the captain, who always looked in control, was fighting for his own life. Recovery meant slowing down, something Sig admitted did not come naturally. Fishing had shaped his life for decades, and staying away from the Northwestern was never going to be easy. Before long, he was back in the wheelhouse, determined to continue doing the only job he had ever truly loved. The danger, however, was not over. In 2018, Sig experienced another serious health scare while at sea after suffering a severe allergic reaction to an antibiotic. The reaction triggered another cardiac emergency, leaving his crew scrambling as his condition rapidly worsened. According to Sig, the situation became so critical that an EpiPen was used before he could receive further medical care. Yet, the Northwestern kept fishing, but the challenges were not limited to the captain's health. The vessel itself continued to face the kind of emergencies that few vessels ever experience. During one trip, thick layers of ice accumulated across the deck, and superstructure as freezing spray covered every exposed surface. As the weight built up, the boat's center of gravity shifted, increasing the risk of capsizing. Crew members worked for hours breaking away the ice before it could threaten the stability of the vessel. Then came another frightening moment. During the 2024 season, the Northwestern suffered a complete power failure while operating roughly 130 miles from shore. Essential electronic systems went dark, leaving the crew without the modern navigation equipment they depended on every day. GPS, onboard displays, and key electrical systems stopped working, forcing the crew to rely on experience and traditional seamanship, while engineers worked to restore power. Even after decades on the water, the emergencies continued. In the 2025 season, another health scare unfolded aboard the Northwestern after weeks of relentless fishing. Sig, exhausted from the demands of the season, collapsed inside his stateroom. crew members found him lying on the floor beside vomit, prompting immediate concern that he had suffered another major medical emergency. Those around him urged him to seek urgent treatment, knowing his history made every warning sign impossible to ignore. For many viewers, these moments revealed a side of commercial fishing that catches and profits never could. For Sig Hansen, surviving the Bering Sea was only part of the challenge. The harder battle was accepting that even the toughest captain cannot outrun time, exhaustion, or his own health. But the emergencies aboard the Northwestern were only part of the story. Away from the Bering Sea, long-buried secrets were returning to haunt Sig Hansen. The secret that refused to stay buried. Long before television turned Sig Hansen into one of the most recognizable captains in America, he was fighting a battle that had nothing to do with the sea. In the early 1990s, his marriage to his first wife, Lisa Ekstrom, came to an end. Like many difficult divorces, the separation quickly became more than a dispute between two adults. The focus shifted to custody of their children, and emotions ran high as both sides prepared for a legal fight that would shape their family's future. Then the situation took a dramatic turn. During the custody dispute, Sig's young daughter, Melissa Ekstrom, made allegations that immediately changed the course of the case. What had started as a family matter suddenly became a criminal investigation. Police got involved, and Sig was arrested while authorities looked into the claims. For anyone in that position, an arrest alone is enough to change everything. Even before a courtroom decides anything, public perception can shift overnight. Questions replaced answers, and speculation followed. Investigators examined the allegations, reviewed the available evidence, and interviewed those involved. But after prosecutors reviewed the case, they decided not to move forward with criminal charges, citing insufficient evidence. From a legal standpoint, the matter appeared to have reached its conclusion. For years, that's exactly where it stayed. Sig returned to the only life he had ever known. He spent long stretches aboard the Northwestern, working the dangerous waters of the Bering Sea while building a reputation as one of Alaska's most respected crab captains. Outside those closest to the case, very few people knew anything about what had happened in the early 1990s. Then, television changed everything. When Deadliest Catch premiered in 2005, Sig became one of the breakout stars of the series. Viewers admired his calm under pressure and his willingness to make difficult decisions in one of the world's most dangerous professions. Season after season, Sig's reputation only grew stronger. For more than a decade, his public image was built around survival and leadership on the Bering Sea. Then, just when it seemed that chapter of his past had been left behind, it returned. In 2016, more than 20 years after the original allegations, Sig's daughter, Melissa Ekstrom, filed a civil lawsuit repeating the same claims that had surfaced during the custody battle. She claims she retained memories of her father, Sig Hansen, sexually assaulting her in 1990 when she was about 2 years old. Overnight, a story that many Deadliest Catch fans had never heard before was back in the headlines. News outlets across the country revisited the entire timeline. Reports reminded readers about the arrest, the decision not to file criminal charges, and the 1992 family court ruling. At the same time, they covered the new lawsuit, introducing the case to an audience far larger than it had ever reached before. Again, Sig denied the allegations, maintaining the same position he had held for decades. He argued that the matter had already been investigated years earlier and pointed to the earlier legal outcomes in his defense. Unlike the criminal investigation from the 1990s, however, this was a civil lawsuit. It was not about criminal punishment. The case soon became tied up in legal arguments over filing deadlines and procedural issues. Appeals followed, keeping the lawsuit alive for years and ensuring that every new development generated another wave of headlines. The public reaction was deeply divided. Some believed the earlier legal decisions should have brought the matter to a close decades before. Others felt the civil lawsuit deserved to be heard, regardless of how much time had passed. As the debate grew, social media only made it louder. Through it all, Sig continued captaining Northwestern. On screen, he was still navigating storms and leading his crew through another crab season. Off-screen, he was once again answering questions about events that had begun more than 20 years earlier. It was an extraordinary collision of two very different worlds. But before the renewed lawsuit had even run its course, another incident placed Sig back in the spotlight. This time, it had nothing to do with his past. It began with a ride through Seattle that ended in criminal charges and created an entirely new controversy. One night that changed everything. By 2017, Sig Hansen had spent years building a reputation that few captains could match. Regardless of the conditions at sea, he always seemed to find a way to push forward. Then, one night in Seattle, everything changed. In March 2017, Sig became involved in an altercation with an Uber driver after a ride through the city. According to police, the argument escalated, and Sig was accused of kicking the driver and spitting on him. What began as a dispute quickly turned into a criminal case, putting the veteran captain back in the headlines for reasons that had nothing to do with fishing. The incident caught many fans off guard. This was the same man viewers had spent years watching make calm decisions under enormous pressure. Now, his name was appearing in police reports instead of stories about the Bering Sea. As the case moved through the courts, Sig chose not to take it to trial. Instead, he pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of fourth-degree assault. The court handed him a suspended jail sentence, meaning he would avoid jail time if he met the conditions imposed by the court. He was also ordered to pay a $43 fine and abstain from drugs and alcohol. With that, the case was legally over. Publicly, however, the damage was harder to erase. News outlets across the country reported the story, and once again, Sig found himself facing uncomfortable questions. Some fans viewed the incident as a lapse in judgment that should not define a career spanning decades. Others believed it added to a growing list of controversies that had already surrounded his name. Sig said little about the case and soon returned to Northwestern. Another fishing season was waiting, and, as always, the sea did not slow down for anyone. On screen, he looked much the same. He was still calling the shots, pushing his crew, and chasing crab through freezing waters. But off-screen, his reputation had taken another hit. The image of the unshakable captain was beginning to crack, and every new headline made that harder to ignore. So, after years of storms, lawsuits, and headlines, one question remains. Where is Sig Hansen now? Where Sig Hansen is today? After surviving lawsuits, medical emergencies, public controversies, and decades in one of the world's most dangerous professions, Sig Hansen remains one of the last original captains still standing. After decades on television and countless controversies away from it, Sig Hansen is still exactly where most fans would expect to find him, at the helm of the FV Northwestern. Despite years of speculation that he might retire, Sig has made it clear that he is not ready to leave the wheelhouse. Now in his 60s, he continues to captain the Northwestern on deadliest catch, saying that fishing is more than a career. It is the life he has known since childhood. In recent interviews, he admitted that retirement is something he thinks about, but insists he still has more seasons left in him. The future of Northwestern is also beginning to take shape. Sig has gradually been preparing the next generation, with his daughter, Mandy Hansen, taking on a larger leadership role aboard the vessel. Her husband, Clark Peterson, has also become an important part of the operation, giving fans a glimpse of what Northwestern may look like when Sig eventually decides to step aside. Even so, he has joked that he has no intention of giving up the captain's chair anytime soon. Outside the Bering Sea, Sig has expanded his career beyond commercial fishing. He has published his memoir, North by Northwestern, a seafaring family on deadly Alaskan waters, offering readers a personal look at his upbringing, family history, and the experiences that shaped him long before television cameras arrived. He later teamed up with Mandy for the Discovery spin-off Deadliest Catch, The Viking Returns, where the pair explored their Norwegian roots while pursuing new fishing opportunities overseas. Away from the cameras, Sig spends more time with his wife, his children, and his growing family. He has also spoken about plans for life beyond commercial fishing, including developing an event center in Norway with his wife, although he admits he could never completely walk away from the industry that has defined his life. Even after everything that has happened, the Northwestern remains one of the most recognizable vessels in commercial fishing. And as long as Sig is in the wheelhouse, every new season adds another chapter to its story. More than 20 years after the series first aired, he is still chasing crab across the Bering Sea, still leading the Northwestern, and still writing new chapters in a career that has outlasted storms, changing fisheries, and generations of fishermen. After everything that's happened, do you think we've heard the full story? Or are there still untold chapters of Sig Hansen's life that have never reached the public? And after decades of battling the Bering Sea, do you think it's finally time for Sig Hansen to step away from Northwestern? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.